Sweet. Okay, guys. Well, it is Wednesday. It's 2 o'clock. Looks like it's about 2 minutes past 2 o'clock, so I apologize for the slight delay, just getting everything set up and ready to go. So it is the Wednesday question and answer time. Josh, I am assuming we do not have any questions that have come in.
No, but we've had quite a few people that have looked like they're ready to come and watch. So hopefully we'll have some people join us today.
All right, good.
We get a lot of watches after, but not a lot of people joining us for the live event so far.
It's actually been gaining momentum.
Yeah.
So that's good. I think we're up to like 3 viewers now. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
We did actually have 8 the last time. So
Whoa.
Live. Yeah.
8. Guys, I don't want to get too excited, but it's kind of a big deal. We're
growing.
Yeah, we are growing. Yeah, that's almost as many customers as we have.
Wow.
So, something's working.
On the street, maybe.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, thankfully. So, I will jump right in. Do I need any plugs for anything? Are we good? I apologize. No. We kind of do this, fly by the seat of our pants. I wish I could get Josh in front of the camera. I don't know why he doesn't. Oh, there you go. Look at that. That is one of the most beautiful hands I've seen. So we'll jump right in. If we don't have any plugs for anybody or things like that, the last question I had come to was this one: what are some signs I have pest infestation? I talked a good bit about all the different things that could possibly be out there and what those might mean, and that's just such a broad question. So many things. I could spend a second a week just on that one alone. How's my hair, Josh? Is it good?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
sure.
Good. Just making sure. All right. So the next question that I have here that came in was, which termite protection is better and why? Liquid or bait stations? So this question is really just a highly opinionated question. So you have a traditional liquid termiticide treatment, which is what most people think of when they think of termite treatments. The guy's coming out there with a big hose on a reel and things like that, and he's spraying a bunch of liquid termiticide around the foundation of the house. It's actually a lot more involved than that. That is probably the most highly regulated segment of our industry is termite treatments. It seems like we probably get more regulatory oversight in that area than anything else, because we are injecting a pretty large volume of termiticide into the soil, so naturally that should be regulated and monitored. You don't want Bubba Brothers Pest Control coming out there just dumping chemical in the soil and doing who knows what to all kinds of non-target species. So it should be regulated. That being said, there are bait stations which have become more and more popular. Centricon, which is owned by Dow Agro, and Dow Agro actually just changed the name of that segment, and the name escapes me right now, but they were the first ones kind of came to market with the Centricon system. Centricon is a good system. We actually use the advanced termite baiting system, very similar in the way the two systems work, both with how they're installed, how they're monitored, the active ingredients. They're not identical, certainly not saying that, but they do behave in very similar ways. And then there's several other products out there. I believe Orkin has their own bait and monitor stations that they use. Centricon is actually tied very closely to Terminex, but they sell to many other pest control companies as well. They've actually approached us and wanted us to use their product, but for the time being, we're very happy with the advanced termite bait stations made by BASF. BASF also owns the brand name of Termidor, which is a liquid termiticide. It's been around since early 2000s, actually, I guess technically late 90s, but it really didn't start being available to all pest control companies to purchase and use until the early 2000s. Fantastic product. It was one of the first non-repellent liquid termiticides available on the market. Fipronil is the active ingredient in that. We still use that quite a bit. So when we do a liquid termiticide treatment, we're typically going to use Termidor. Most people would say that that is the best product out there. It's not the only product. There's some other really good, promising products on the market. I think Termidor just has been in use so long and has enough data and research behind it to show that it's effective, to show that it kills termites, et cetera, that, you know, it's kind of hard for companies, including ours, to pull away from it and take a chance or take a risk on some of these other products that are available. So yeah, there's a bunch of them out there, Airlawn and Premise, and you have some old school products still available like cypermethrin, which in my opinion don't work nearly as well. So cypermethrin would be a repellent termiticide. So I'm giving you a bunch of gobbledygook that, you know, I feel like I kind of need to give you some background on before we talk about which one is better. So it's not that one is better than the other. They both work in completely different ways. So when we look at a liquid termiticide treatment, it is not simply that all liquid termiticides work the same way. They don't. The two major classes that we look at are really probably repellents versus non-repellents. I would say the most popular these days is the non-repellent termiticide, which would be Termidor. The name is a little misleading, so that they used to say that non-repellent, the termites didn't know it was there, and they would trail through it, and it would kill everybody before they knew what happened. More research is coming out that suggests that the termites actually do know that it's there, but it's in low enough doses that they don't necessarily care. And additional research recently is showing that maybe it's not killing the whole termite colony, but it's just kind of stopping the termite activity from that particular area or that particular structure. So I would say Termidor is very effective. We've been using it ourselves since the early 2000s. You know, we were one of the first companies to jump on board and try it out, and we've had some really, really good success with that. But the bait stations, again, more research is coming out on those. So I used to say that Termidor was a better treatment because the bait stations are put about every 10 feet apart. Every company can change that a little bit if you read the label on the bait stations, which again, as we always say, the label is the law. The label will suggest that the stations be, I think, around 10 feet apart, but it says they can be up to 20 feet apart. However, if there is a hardscape such as a driveway that prevents it from being a minimum of 20 feet apart, then you can go up to 30 feet without having one in between. If it's more than that, you really need to find some way to do a core drill or something like that through the concrete or through the hardscape, and they make concrete stations that can go in those in-between spots. That all being said, a lot of people used to say, I was one of them, who would say, well, you know, if these stations are 10 or 20 feet apart, what prevents the termites from just going right between the stations and still eating up the house or eating up the structure, whatever kind of structure it is? And there's some truth to that, but more and more we are seeing that the bait stations seem to be very effective in killing off those termites. So the way that they work is, of course, the termites will begin feeding on the station. A lot of the stations may be a monitor station, but when there's activity, the technician switches that out for an active ingredient. Tefloron, man, I hope I'm saying that right, is the latest active ingredient for the advanced bait stations. Cyfluthrin, I believe. Oh gosh, I hope I'm not messing that up, because somebody out there in entomology world is going to bust my chops big time if I said those wrong. Anyway, forgive me, you know where I'm going with this. They're both chitin inhibitors. chitin is what the exoskeleton is made out of. So when the termites eat that, it prevents them from producing the chitin. It prevents them from being able to molt and shed their skin, which is required for their life cycle changes. It actually typically will affect the larva first, and as those larvae start to die off, because those larvae, of course, have to molt and shed skin as well, then there's nobody that can feed the rest of the colony. The larvae are important to feed the other workers and the queen and so on and so forth. So as they die off, you can still have a colony with lots of workers, lots of soldiers. The queen is still alive, but it's kind of a ticking time bomb. Everybody's going to start to die here real soon because the larvae are dead, and that's kind of the lifeline for the whole colony. Once the larvae are dead, everybody else is going to die eventually. So it does work. It works really, really well. It does take a little bit longer sometimes to work, and so that can be key. A couple of key things with the termite station is if you have that service, more and more companies are going to an annual inspection. Why are you laughing at me? Is it because I'm a big nerd? Or?
No. We are having conversations here, and Allison Poost actually asked for a quick way to get rid of or prevent random ant piles as they appear overnight. So I told her I would let you know the question when you caught your breath or when you stopped to breathe.
Oh, gosh.
But they didn't think you were going to stop to breathe.
Hey, that is fair. You know what, Allie? That's fair. All right, so I apologize for going on and on because
No.
I'm still not even finished with the termite question, but let's address Allie's question instead, and I'll come back to this if there's time or maybe just next week. So Allie, ant piles overnight. I'm assuming these are outdoor ant mounds, most likely. So you can have piles of frass and things that show up indoors. That's a whole different subject. Ant piles that show up overnight, was this maybe after heavy rainfall or something like that? Because if so, that would lead me to think that it was probably maybe some fire ant mounds. That's the most common for that to happen. There's a lot of products out there. Allie, we can certainly take a look at that for you since you are one of our customers. So the ant colonies are already there. It's not like they just magically appeared overnight, but what happens a lot of times is after a rainfall, it floods the galleries and it floods the home of those ants, and then the next day they're excavating all that mud and dirt that washed in, and now you see a new mound that you didn't think was there before, but now it is. And so that's kind of what happens. And keeping in mind that throughout the year, even in winter time, when we really don't see ants out foraging, they're still producing eggs and larvae and so on and so forth. So those colonies are constantly growing and constantly multiplying. So how do you get rid of those, I think, was the question. And really the answer is it depends on what kind of ant it is. But there are some non-selective pesticides out there, meaning they're not specific for one species or another. They're just kind of a broad spectrum pesticide. They sell stuff like that at Lowe's and Home Depot and things like that. So the best ant control is to actually flood or drench the mound and the colony with adequate pesticide. The label on that pesticide may even give you some instruction on that. It may even give some recommendations on how much. Maybe it says a quart or a half a gallon or a gallon of pesticide per mound or something like that. One method also with that drenching and flooding of individual mounds is taking a rod or some sort of stake that you can drive in the ground and actually work that pesticide into the ground as you flood and drench it. So again, just read the label, make sure that it's labeled for that kind of application. But that is a great way to wipe out some ant colonies. It's not going to prevent more colonies from moving in, unfortunately. They can at any time. Nature abhors a vacuum, so when you get rid of one ant colony, another ant colony might move in. It might be a different species, but you'll still have other ants move in. And that's a good thing. Ants do a lot of good. They clean up a lot of the trash and waste that we leave laying around, that your kids, and I know your kids, Allie, I know they're leaving trash and waste on the ground. So, and I mean that in the kindest way, so do mine. All those blueberries that you keep spilling, The ants are going to pick those up, clean that up. That's going to be food for them. They're also going to aerate the soil and all kinds of other beneficial things that ants do. So I hope that answers your question. If it's a specific species like a fire ant, there are some really good products out there that you can prevent those fire ants from coming in and becoming established and so on and so forth. So there's a few different products out there. One over-the-counter product would be Amdro. We don't really work with Amdro a whole lot.
And that's AMDRO, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
D as in dog. AMDRO. So the products we use, which you probably are going to have a hard time finding because they typically are for commercial use, but would be Advion granular ant bait for fire ants, and then Extinguish. We use the Advion because it's a very quick knockdown, and then we use Extinguish because that tends to kind of be a good maintenance product. So Extinguish is going to be a little cheaper. That's where we're going to use that as a maintenance product. Advion's a little more expensive. That's why we're using it just for a quick knockdown. So those are also a couple of product hints, I suppose. So I hope I answered your question. If there's more to it than that, obviously send another question in. Email Josh, he'll pass it on to me, or email or message him, whatever. You can call the office, whatever. And of course, yeah, you can always ask me. So,
if anybody ever has a pest control question, they can always message us right through Facebook. So it's the easiest way. I'll get it. If I don't know the answer, then I will get you or Lucas. We will find an answer for them. So
yeah, and I have no doubt that your husband Mark can just knock the heck out of these ants. So tell Mark he's my hero. All right, Josh, I think that's it. I think we're out of time.
All right.
So I will pick up with termite treatments and stations next week, and let us know if you have any other questions in the meantime.
And thank everybody who stopped by and said hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Adios, everyone.